What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Lakers Central podcast, where I discuss the most famous basketball franchise on the planet with the biggest, brightest, and up and coming voices in sports and culture. Before I get into today's show, make sure you tell one other NBA fan about the Lakers Central podcast. We're building a community one listener at a time. And I'm back with Vinay. As you guys can see, a first time live streaming together. What's up, Vinay, man? How's it going?
I am doing good, Alex. I hope you're doing well. I am not in LA right now. I am in Georgia, where things are warm and it's raining, and there are protests going on every day in Atlanta. But we did get some good news today. The NBA is coming back in 2 months. So some good news and some productive news on that front.
It is, man. So let's just jump right into it, man. So the Board of Governors approved the NBA to return. I believe the vote was 29-1. Portland was the only team that voted against it, or they voted. Apparently, they wanted the 20-team format rather than the 22-team format.
Yeah, and I think what I read was it's because the 20-team format had a different rule around if your lottery seeding is affected if you lose early or something like that. So I think it was a strategic thing. I don't think it was one of those things where Portland is just, being whiny. I think there's some specific thing that they must have wanted. So that's why they objected. But, near unanimous. So that's good to hear.
Could it also be that Dame Lillard has already come out and said he doesn't want to participate, so they don't have a chance at making the 8th seed?
I try not. Well, I'm not going to say I try not to. I love making fun of Blazers fans because some of my best friends are Blazers fans, and I have a lot of family that's up there. But Dame is a very competitive guy. So I don't think it came from him. I think it's just, it is what it is. But if we play Portland, I love it. I want, as much as we always want, the path of least resistance when it comes to winning a championship. People are calling it an asterisk season as soon as coronavirus happened. So, people are going to say that anyway. So might as well just play all the hard teams all the way there so people can't say anything to it anyway. So, it's whatever. Give us Portland, give us Memphis, give us the Pelicans. It doesn't matter. Give us the Pelicans. I want to hear people talk about Zion in his first year making the playoffs. And if they get swept right out of the playoffs, then we can have that conversation too.
It actually wouldn't surprise me if somehow we got the Pelicans in the first round, because all eyes are already going to be on the Lakers. But if they play the Pelicans with the storylines with that, the league would probably make a lot of money off of viewership and things like that. I'm actually surprised that we got all these dates. Everything just started to spill out today from ESPN, from Woj, or Mark Stein. Everybody was talking about it. So let me run through some of these dates for everybody. So training camp will start June 30th, and players will report to their normal teams and franchises. Then they will travel to Orlando on July 7th, and the season will actually resume July 31st. The draft lottery is August 25th. The last day for Game 7 of the finals is October 12th. Then next season begins with training camp starting November 10th and opening day for the 2021 season December 1st.
Yeah, that's
a quick turnaround.
That's a very, very. I think maybe they're thinking to themselves that because so many teams will be weeded out of the process up until the actual finals, that other teams will get more time. But even then, that's like a 2-week turnaround between this season and next season. So I can't imagine the players. You're gonna get, when the season starts, if you do that, you're gonna get a whole bunch of teams whose star players are probably not even going to participate in those opening games. So I would suspect, my guess is that the Players Association is going to push back on that date and probably try and push towards the end of December. But then I could see the argument, why bring people back during the holidays? And so that could, we're just waiting for their season to come back, but I could see that becoming a dicey conversation between the teams because of how the revenue is structured and stuff like that. So I guess we'll see what happens, but that's going to be a lot of basketball in the second six months of the year, or the second half of the year, basically. Yeah,
it is a lot of basketball, and I think I tweeted this on Twitter earlier, but you want a shitstorm on social media? Let the Lakers win back-to-back championships in these abbreviated seasons.
Let LeBron win one. Let LeBron win. I'm a Laker fan first, and I'll always be a Laker fan. Magic and Kobe are at the top of my Lakers top 5 and stuff like that. But no real fan of a team. This is my stance, but no real fan of a team is ever going to be oh no, we don't want LeBron to win up for our team. Like, let LeBron win. Like, I would love to see him even just win one for the Lakers, because as we're seeing now with the season resuming, a lot of the Laker fans are pulling up the receipts of people saying that the Lakers wouldn't make the playoffs and stuff like that. So, it is what it is. And I hope he wins it. I genuinely hope he wins it. I don't think I've ever seen a player. When's the last time you saw a player get used like by Fox News as content, like Fox Politics, the political shows as content, the way that like LeBron has? And so it would be I don't even know what I'd do if the Lakers won. I've thought about it, and if the Lakers won a championship, I'd probably go cry for a little bit, knowing that losing Kobe and stuff like that, and him not being able to be there and stuff like that. But it's going to be a good time if the Lakers can win it. But 2 asterisk seasons, that sounds like just the right amount of controversy to carry ESPN for another 5 years. So I wouldn't be surprised. Won't be surprised at all.
What do you make of this? I guess they're going to play 8 games, the remainder of the season, every team. What do you make of that? I mean, you like that idea? You think they should have played less or just went right into the playoffs? What are your thoughts?
So I wasn't a big fan of the just go straight to the playoffs, only because there are some teams that were really, really close. Like I feel as though the opportunity for Memphis, I think Memphis deserved it, obviously, because they took care of business. It's not their fault other teams are hurt and all that sort of stuff. But I think it would have sucked because there were some other teams that were really streaking like towards that 8th spot, and Memphis was reeling a little bit, strength of schedule, all that kind of stuff. And then the main reason why I was against the 16 games was because Memphis had some head-to-head matchups. Like they had 2 games against New Orleans, they had a game or 2 against Portland. Though that could flip the standings and stuff like that. So it kind of sucks that other teams get it cut out, but I'd understand if that happened. I like this format. I think it's good. I think they're not making it exactly even for the team. So they're not giving Memphis a huge advantage, and they're not giving the incumbent teams a huge advantage. Basically, you gotta say whoever the 9th seed is, you gotta stay within 3.5 games or less of the 8th seed, and then you got to beat them twice in a row. That's basically what the rule is. That's how the play-in tourney works. So you could see a situation where Memphis loses the 8th seed on the last couple of games, and they're the 9th seed, and then they have to beat the 8th seed 2 games in a row to get in. So it's high stakes basketball. So I think people are going to enjoy that part of it. But I think it's fine. It's very hard to balance everybody's needs. But if the teams that were cut out of the play-in, like that play-in portion that aren't part of the 22, if they're okay with it, then who am I to complain? Let them do it the way they're doing it.
Yeah, I like the idea of look, one, getting these guys back to their respective teams and doing some kind of mini training camp in their home teams, and then going to Orlando to Disney World, and then another training camp or whatever, and then giving them 8 games to start their ramp back up. If they were to go right into the playoffs, I'm sure you risk further injury or all kinds of things. Their bodies, they are healthier and more athletic than 99% of the people on the planet, but they haven't played competitive basketball in almost 3 months. And so these guys, they need to kind of get back into basketball shape. When I'm looking at who they are expected to play the next 8 games, and it goes like this: the Rockets, the Nuggets, the Jazz twice, the Raptors, the Wizards, the Pacers, and the Kings. So, the Wizards, they're a gimme. Ted Leonis, if you're watching this, give me my money back for my ticket. This is ridiculous.
I don't think I may have not gotten the email. My buddy may have gotten it, but I don't know what they've told the Laker fans either. They're saying something like you're either going to get a credit towards next season, or they're going to or you have like an option of doing certain things. I can't remember what the messaging initially said, but that's going to be a big deal, like for people, making sure that people like get their money back and all that sort of stuff. And like I sold some of my tickets, so I'm not going to I can repay the people back, but I don't think ticket exchanges are going to be like, all right, you need to give back the money that you earned. Like, that's not my problem. That's your problem now. So I hope you get your money back. Either that, or I'm assuming they're going to give you credit or something that you can use towards another game or something. So, but if you don't want that, then who knows what they're going to do?
Well, I've had people reach out to me to buy them, but I have no idea what's really going to happen with them. So,
right.
I'm anyone watching, I'm willing to sell my Lakers tickets. If you want to see the Lakers play the Wizards, I am willing to sell them. They are not cheap, mind you, but I'm willing to sell them. But anyway, Ted Leon is giving my money back. But look, there's no gimmies. I mean, the Rockets, we played them when they went to that fresh, new, small ball, super small lineup, and they gave us a lot of trouble. The Nuggets are very.
They barely beat us though. Okay, like that's true. Barely. It took. What was that shot? It was the corner three by Covington with like Anthony Davis closing out on him. Like even I was like, oh my god, he's gonna make this, and then I was like, all right, like And then they went on it. They started sliding really hard right after that game, which is apparently what always happens.
And you got the Nuggets. That'll be a good game. Now the Jazz. They've been reeling all season, but they actually started to get better. But now Bogdanovich is done for the rest of the year. So how they look, who knows? I think that should be a win. The Lakers haven't had much trouble with them anyway this season. The Raptors, though, we did lose to the Raptors this year. So I'm curious to see how that works. Again, the Wizards aren't a factor. The Pacers, Brogdon is back. I don't think he was back when we played them in January? I think it was when we played them.
I think he played. Oladipo wasn't there, but I think Brogdon played, and that was a game again that Lakers lost by 1. And I think LeBron missed the game winner. He tried a game-winning 3 or something like that, and he missed it. And both those matchups, Toronto and Indiana, were both the teams that people were saying are contenders and real teams that the Lakers couldn't beat, just like Milwaukee and the Clippers. And so we had to get even with them. So I guess we'll get our chance.
And then we finished up with the Kings, which that shouldn't be an issue either, right? I mean,
can you? The reason why I'm laughing is just because the guy who runs social media for the Kings he's great. He does such a good job. Every time they mention the Lakers, that guy's like on it. So I appreciate that guy. But how good would it be if the Lakers ended up eliminating the Kings from the playoffs on like the very last game?
It probably will happen. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised,
Oh, that would be funny. Oh man, yeah. On the note that you're mentioning, those teams look like basically it's a good warm up. It's not an easy cakewalk. It's the Jazz games, the Denver game, the Houston game. Those all have seeding implications. So. That's also important as well. For the Kings, that also has seeding implications as well. So, I think the Lakers will take it seriously. I think not that it matters because there's no real home court in Orlando. If they only need to win like 3 out of the 8 games that they play in order to like keep the first seed. So even for technically the Lakers are the first seed thing, like. They only have to win 3 games, and I think they should be fine. So it's just a matter of like figuring out like what games they are kind of working things out. I think for guys like me and you who are like really trying to watch like the X's and O's and try and figure things out, we'll get to see some different rotations because they'll get 2 months of camp basically before the season starts. So we'll get a chance to see how Waiters and Morris and how all these rotations work out. Like Dwight was like noticeably absent because of foul trouble in the Clippers series early on. So how are they going to integrate Dwight again and stuff like that? So I'm going to be curious to see how they do it. I'm excited to see what those 8 games look like.
I am too. I mean, we never got a chance to see Dion Waiters, and we certainly needed that scoring punch off the bench. We needed a guy that really, regardless if he was going to make a shot or not, he's not afraid to take the shot. We needed a guy like that. I know that he's not known for his defense, but he's not a little guy at 6'4". His body is filled out. He's got, I think, a 6'9" wingspan. So, there are clips all over YouTube of him blocking Lou Williams' shot and getting up in Kawhi's face. So I'm really interested to see what he looks like. Markieff Morris, we got to see him briefly, and he made some plays, certainly in that Clippers game for us. I think he's a heck of an addition. I know a lot of Lakers fans wanted his brother, but, Marcus makes $15 million. Markieff makes $3.5 million. And given the difference in salary, I think Markieff is more valuable, especially considering what the Lakers almost had to give up to get Marcus.
Well, and what you're also seeing is that because we're discussing Marcus, the way the Clippers are building their roster is based on individual accountability. Every guy that they're trying to add to that team is not a role player. Every person they're adding to that team is somebody that they can say, all right, if Kawhi and Paul George aren't doing well and we give you the ball, can you make something happen? So they go out and get Marcus Morris. He's a two-way guy. Technically, he's a two-way guy. He plays defense and he can score. That's what he was doing for the Knicks. That's what he's done historically. His brother is probably a little bit more of a role player in the way that he plays, not somebody you give the ball and ask him to score a whole bunch of points.
Right.
They grabbed Reggie Jackson, same thing. Reggie Jackson was a sixth man, but then wanted an expanded role. His relationship soured with the folks at OKC. Goes to Detroit, gets an expanded role. Is not as good as as good as people expected him to be. So like you could see what they're trying to do, and it falls in line with the coaching philosophy that team has. Doc, like the other guys that have come after him, Thibodeau and those guys, he places a lot of emphasis on individual responsibility. Marcus has to do his job. Kawhi has to do his job. Pat, all these guys have to do their job. Yep. The Lakers are not building their team that way. The Lakers are building their team based on, we know who our two stars are. We need the rest of you guys to support those guys in winning the game. And what we saw in that last matchup is exactly that. As long as Anthony Davis and LeBron are put in a position to succeed, they'll succeed. And you just need somebody to step up. First game, it was Danny Green. Second game, it was Kuzma. Third game, it was Avery Bradley. So I know a lot of folks are like, well, who's going to step up? Who's going to step up? We don't know. It's literally been a different guy every time. And that's actually a good thing. It's kind of, it's a weird thing to say, but it's a good thing. That means defenses don't know which guy is going to go off. So, it keeps the defense honest. So I'm excited. I'm on Waiters Island, man. I did a big write-up I did a write-up on it, and that ended up getting a lot of reads on the newsletter. Waiters is everything that we need out of a scoring guy. He's irrational, but he's like very confident of himself sometimes. So, and if anything else, all of the role players on the team know their role. Caruso plays defense. Kuzma standing in the corner for the three. Dwight and JaVale are grabbing lobs. Markieff, he's the bruiser down in the middle and stuff like that. Everybody knows their roles. So you got to just get a guy like Waiters in there. Just let him score. Let him do what he does best. And the Lakers will succeed. I'm excited. A lot of clutch folks on our team right now and former clutch clients.
There is, man. And look, this is Waiters' last chance, right? Like if this doesn't work out, he's probably out of the league. And so Pelinka used to rep him. I think that Waiters will actually be just fine. Like if we don't win this season, it won't be because Waiters ate too many gummies or did something that people don't like. It won't be. He's gonna be. He'll be okay. Just like I think Dwight has been great all year long. Another guy that people thought was on his way out. The Lakers have done a great job in bringing these guys in, even like JaVale, that really nobody wants. And these guys have all contributed to wins. And I feel like being away from the game for almost 3 months, having a veteran team. I mean, all of these guys have been, if not the playoffs, to the finals. I mean, they've got a legit finals tested team. Yeah. So if let's say we kept the young guys and you're all of a sudden missing 3 months of basketball, would we be confident that the young guys would be eating healthy, working out, staying in shape? Not as much as maybe like LeBron's in year 17. He knows what's at stake, right? Yeah. Like these guys know this is it for a number of them. Anthony Davis clearly wants to advance further in the playoffs than he did in New Orleans. He wants to get that monkey off his back. And unfortunately, there is that specter of Kobe's passing this season that weighs over top of the Lakers, unlike it does any other franchise in the NBA. And so I would imagine that on some level, those guys do want to win one for him. And so there's a lot riding on this, and I think they'll be ready. Yeah,
I look, man, like I watched, like we've said so many times before, we watched Kobe for 20 years and transitioned. Once LeBron came in the league, people have been watching him for now 17 years. Like at this point, like work ethic and leadership isn't a conversation for him. Like there's nothing to dispute. And it's very clear, based on everything that folks have, like guys that like Troy Daniels, who are there, who are now no longer there, as well as the new guys that have come in, like Markieff. Like this is a real team. This is not some hodgepodge of like mix up of people that they just added in and they're just expecting the world. This is not the Knicks roster building. Okay. Like this is there's a fit and there's a form to it. And Rob is in, what's it called? He has that chemistry or, that cohesion with Vogel and stuff like that. So, I like everything that's been going on. I like the council of coaches that we have on the bench. I like the talent. I like all of it. And look, in the end, I'm not betting against LeBron. Like I'm just not. I'm not doing it. Like even if they're down 3-1, like he's pretty much made it clear you can't bet against them. So until they like are actually officially eliminated from playoffs or from the finals or whatever, I'm not betting against them. So call that irrational confidence. Call it Laker exceptionalism. The historical evidence is there, so we're just gonna roll with it. And I think more than anything, the media spent so much time downplaying the Lakers this offseason. I feel like that bulletin board material stuff that people always talk about in locker rooms, that's got like, can you imagine? There's got to be paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs. And Laker fans are keeping receipts, so they're gonna come out sooner or later. We're all paying attention.
No, I agree. I mean, I'm looking at something you retweeted earlier, man. Games played between the league's top 22 teams.
Yeah.
So I know you remember earlier this season where there were people out there saying the Lakers record was a bunch of cupcakes and they didn't beat anybody. And of course, before the season suspended, we watched them go right through the Bucks and through the Clippers. And I'm looking at this. I mean, the Lakers are 37-14 against the top 22 teams. That leads the NBA. They played 51 games against the top 22 teams. Milwaukee is second with 43 games, and they're 31-12. The Lakers have 6 more wins against the top teams. I mean, all that talk about, the schedule was fluff. You're not seeing that when you look at at what they really did.
Yeah, and I think at the time, like when it was mid-season, I want to say people were saying, well, the Lakers have a top record, but they haven't beaten. Like, the sample size of teams that they had to beat started getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
Right.
And then it got to a point where literally the only 2 teams people were talking about were Milwaukee and the Clippers. And then when the Lakers beat the Milwaukee and the Clippers, or beat the Bucks and the Clippers, then they're like, oh, well, that's just 1 game each. It's like, all right, man. Like, I'm not saying that. I get it. We're talking about 30 years, all right? We're talking about like 3 decades of Lakers winning championships in each decade. Like, people are sick and tired of Lakers fans, Like, I get that. But at the same time, you're making an argument, people at the beginning say, well, the Lakers haven't even made it in the past 6 years. They haven't even made the playoffs. Well, now they're officially in the playoffs. So people can just be like, hey, good for them. But no, people just keep moving the goalposts. So, it's the nature of being a Lakers fan. I know you've probably felt it for as long as you've been rooting for the Lakers. People will just continue to move the goalposts. And like I said, I like to believe in karma, and I like to think that there's like a cosmic balance to all of this sort of stuff sometimes. And, we know who the media has picked as favorites. And we also know who the media gave no consideration to for a championship. So we'll see how it works out.
So now that the season's coming back, we're going to get the 50 wins, which I think we haven't had 50 wins since what, 2010?
2010. Yeah, I was trying to keep track of the rate of wins and what the end result of the season was. And I want to say the last time we won 50 to 55 wins, we won the championship, which would be 2010, I believe.
So we're going to get the 50 wins when there were some experts that said we couldn't even get 50 wins, right? That we'd be struggling to get the 8th seed. We wouldn't be better than the Jazz or any of the. So what do you think about these proposed home court kind of advantages that they might build in, because you can't play on your home court? The Lakers and Bucks, they fought to have the best records in the NBA. And now they're talking about maybe assigning 1 player with 7 fouls, which I actually think might be really valuable. I know it gets tricky, but it could be really valuable. LeBron's never going to foul out of a game, but maybe Anthony Davis or somebody else. Dwight certainly gets in foul trouble. Letting the teams 1 through 16 pick which hotels they stay in.
I thought that one was fun. I thought that was funny. Only reason I thought that one was funny was because, first of all, these are like $1 million athletes, right? So and there's probably like what, maybe 3 hotels or 2 hotels that they get to choose. It's 22 teams. So what is that times 15? So you're talking about like 300-ish players that you're sending. So it's like, are we comparing like the win to like, I'm trying to think of a hotel to say that won't get us in trouble, like Motel 6 or something like that.
Right.
Is that the difference? Like, I'm pretty sure it's like a 1A, 1B sort of situation. So who cares what the hotel is? I thought the home court one was cool. I thought allowing the home team to have their home court on the floor, I thought that would be pretty cool. Just because from a viewing experience, it's like we're watching a home game. So I thought that was good. And I interrupted the other rules that you were mentioning, but go ahead.
No, I mean, The home court thing is interesting. The extra foul, the extra coaches challenging that. That's interesting.
I thought that one I could see them considering that one. I don't think they'll do the extra foul. That one seems a little too weird. Like it's too specific. I remember the other one was like the home team gets every starting possession of every quarter. That could be a big deal because teams that try to go for like 2-for-1s at the end of every quarter would essentially, if they're successful, get a 3-for-1. So I could see people voting against that. But the extra coaches challenge, that could change the way certain games end. So personally, I don't like messing with the rules too much because I feel like that could put an asterisk on it. Like if I had an extra coaches challenge and I use it and it ends up being a turnover on the other guy, and so we win the game, I could see people complaining about that. But I thought the safe medium for the viewer and for home court fans is just to watch them, win on the Lakers court. I think it would be really funny if the Lakers played the Clippers in the Western Conference Finals, and for all 7 games, if it went for 7 games, it was the Lakers home court every single time. I think that would be really funny because Lakers fans have basically been saying if they play at Staples, it's basically seven home games. So I thought that'd be kind of funny if that happened. But I think it's interesting. I'd be curious to see how they vote.
I would too. I mean, all of these work in our favor. So if they approve any of this stuff, the Lakers come out on top, except for if we play the Bucks in the finals, right? Then that's where things get really tricky because I think we're going to need every possession, everything that we're going to need to beat them. But I don't know if they're going to even approve any of these. They might. I mean, they're quirky, some of them. But I credit the NBA for trying to figure out how to still award the best teams in the NBA some kind of home court advantage. Credit them for that.
I agree. Yeah, that's the only thing I haven't seen in this agreement. Like anything that the teams that did their job and they were trying to win games, like how are you not rewarding them, but how are you balancing out them? Also, these are the teams that are more or less risking their health for everybody's revenue, including their own. So, how are those teams being rewarded and stuff like that? So, I'm curious to see what ends up happening and stuff like that. But it'll be interesting. It's an interesting time we're living in right now, Alex.
No, it's extremely interesting, man. And yesterday when they started announcing the league was going to come back, I mean, one, to see the Lakers trending again, Lakers in 4 was trending. I mean, everything was around the Lakers, right? Like the last couple of days, it's like you really see who moves the NBA, who moves the needle in the NBA.
A big section, whether people like it or not, want to believe it or not, like a big subsection of NBA Twitter is Lakers Twitter. So like that's just how it is. There's a reason why Caruso keeps trending every time he's up there, and that's why bench Rondo, cut Rondo keeps trending like within like the 4-minute quarters that he plays. So it's just how it works.
With so much going on, I had one of the writers in one of my group chats ask me, did I think, right? He asked the entire group, but asked, did we think any of the players would, protest and sit out any games or anything like that? And I said, they're not going to sit out games. They never have. They almost did with Sterling, but they have never done that. They're going to protest in their own way. They're going to continue to bring awareness to the police brutality on Black people. But I can't imagine a player, certainly not a superstar, saying we're going to sit out games. Not right. I mean, I can't see that happening.
No, I mean, there is, we have to be honest about the situation. There is a financial interest that's involved with this. Like these guys, if you didn't have one of those special contracts, the front-loaded contracts, like you only got paid for like half of your pay period, or your half of your year, and that's with a pay cut of like 25% or something like that they agreed upon. So, like, there is a financial incentive when it comes to that sort of stuff. I didn't think that they would ever sit out because of that. But, one thing that I've been trying to share with folks, at least on Twitter, is the NBA has been very active when it comes to not just Black Lives Matters, but like just anything that affects the Black community, the African-American community. And if anything, in 2 months' time, if the movement slows down, if the protests slow down, I think the message is going to ramp up again when the season starts, because I find it really, really hard to believe that LeBron, who's already been outspoken, I think today or yesterday was about. He was the one who retweeted that thing about Drew
Brees'
misunderstanding of his Yahoo. I'm not gonna say misunderstanding. Whatever Brees wants to stand on in the Yahoo interview, but like LeBron's the biggest athlete in the U.S. Like you have sports people, and then you have political people, and you have their shows that revolve around like what he says, and it's not just LeBron. It's almost any NBA athlete. NBA athletes, because the NBA promotes their star players, are the ones that whose voices get put into those political conversations, and they get they're the ones that these like random folks who have nothing to do with sports start giving their opinions on. And I think the NBA is very, very aware of that. I think guys like LeBron, KD, Curry, all these guys are very aware of that. They're also aware of the dynamic of what happens in their communities. And Adam Silver has been, in my opinion, very like, he's almost like aggressive when it comes to those sort of things. Like he's the one who was there during the Donald Sterling incident. I think he was deputy at the time when the whole Trayvon Martin thing happened. So he's seen like the direction that this kind of stuff goes in, and he sees an opportunity to allow, or like, just to enable his star players, or any players really, to speak up on it. So aside from basketball, like we're all happy that basketball is back. I'm happy basketball is back, but there are serious issues in regards to the fabric of what America is, that needs to be addressed. And that's what a lot of folks are protesting about. And that's what and I think that's going to be on the minds of a lot of players. And as soon as that television camera is on them, I will not be surprised at all if they spend a lot of their time talking about those protests and talking about those issues, while trying to answer whatever basketball related questions they have. So good for them.
Yeah. I mean, these guys, the league is predominantly black, right? And so it does not matter how much fame they get or how much money they get.
Yep.
Their skin is of a darker hue. And no matter what, they have a responsibility. Now, whether or not they decide to speak out or act on that responsibility, that is a personal decision. And players like LeBron, he certainly is outspoken and does it all the time. A lot of people got upset that he wasn't outspoken about the China thing. And, we've talked about it, you and I, but, it's one thing to speak about something you know nothing about, or you're not as well versed on. It's a different thing when you come from the community in which is often brutalized and preyed upon by the police. And I actually thought it was interesting today when Tom Haberstroh, he released this quick video essay about all the NBA teams that have spoken out in the wake of the protest. And as we know, the Knicks have not said anything. The Spurs didn't say anything either, even though Greg Popovich I think he did an article in The Nation, but the Spurs as an organization and an ownership group didn't. That's likely because the Holt family that owns the Spurs are Trump donors. I won't get too far.
I didn't know that. All right.
They're big time Trump. So even in San Antonio, to have Greg Popovich, who's really critical of Trump, and the owner to be pro-Trump, that's an interesting dynamic. But Tom Haberstroh said of all the essays and statements and things that were written by the NBA teams, there were 5,485 total words, and only twice was police brutality mentioned, and only 5 times the word police. And so, these NBA teams, I understand that they're essentially Fortune 500 companies. They try very hard to kind of walk both sides of the line. And the truth is, there is no walking both sides of the line. You're either on the side of right, you're on the side of wrong. And if your fan base gets alienated because you specifically say police brutality, then you have an issue, and your fan base has an issue. And I think that goes towards the whole Drew Brees thing when he was asked a question, and he was asked about Colin Kaepernick kneeling, and he said it's disrespecting the flag. Yeah. And for years, people have been explaining it off the record, on the record. It is nothing. It has nothing to do with the flag.
Yeah, that's that's the most bizarre thing. Yeah,
it is to keep making it about
doesn't
that.
make any sense. Yeah,
and to say, well, my grandfather served in the military. Well, so did a lot of black people's grandfathers and uncles and husbands and brothers. And when many of them come back from war, they don't get the benefits that white soldiers get. And not only that, one thing that actually bothers me with that whole narrative of it's disrespecting the military and disrespecting the flag is that one, no one seems to care that veteran services are underfunded. And a lot of the homeless people are veterans, right? Like that's disrespecting veterans. And then I get annoyed when I hear people say, well, my grandfather or my father served in the military. I never hear anybody say, well, I actively served in the military or I'm a retired veteran. Like no one is like everybody that says it's about the military, they don't serve in the military.
Right.
And so it takes the conversation to a place which is lazy, disingenuous, and then social media gets involved, and then the celebrity issues an apology, which is written by a PR firm, which is not, it's so ridiculous.
I had a joke I was going to tweet out, but I was just like, I don't need NFL Twitter up my ass. So I didn't post it, but I was just going to make a joke about how I thought maybe Jay-Z was ghostwriting for some of these NFL players and their apologies. So I didn't post it because I was like, I thought that this was the reason why like, I remember that interview that Jay-Z did with Roger Goodell, and he's looking at all those reporters and he says, why was Colin Kaepernick protesting? And everybody's like, police brutality. And he's going, he does that like hand motion, right? He's like pointing, he's asking each one. All of them say police brutality. And then he goes, all right, now that we have that clear, like, where do we go from here, right? And not even how many months later, you have one of the biggest star QBs in the NFL say what he said. And I was just like, this is exactly like, how is this possible? You know, I mean, I understand how it's possible, but like, I thought we were trying to get past this point. And I thought that's what you were hired onto. But clearly, you know, people, everybody lives their own lives. They have their own opinions. I'm not going to say that you shouldn't have that opinion, but I think what you said is right. When we look at athletes, when we look at celebrities, when we look at our favorite teams, we as fans, we as human beings have to start discerning. We have to start separating things out. All right. Like a business making a PR statement that isn't inflaming both sides. We understand what that's about. Okay. Like we understand that they have revenue that they have to keep. And I understand all that sort of stuff. Even on Twitter, you're seeing folks that are NBA analysts or whatever, like influencers or people with celebrity. They're like, oh, I've lost a ton of followers because I've been posting about BLM and stuff like that. And it's just like, when I read it, like, I get it. I get why that is what it is. But like, at the same time, who cares? Like, if you have that conviction in yourself on whatever side of it is, like, who cares? Like, who cares about followers at this point? You know what I mean? And so, you know, it's a very, very difficult line to walk. And I think this matter is, in the past, I tweeted this earlier, but the best way I could describe it is this. In the past 2 weeks, I've blocked a lot of ignorant people. Like people just straight misinformation, taking something and just completely putting a completely different spin on it. That's just far and away from what's actually happening. And I think something that hasn't been covered today, or I haven't seen covered as much today, which will probably get picked up a little bit later as soon as the national news picks it up. That Ahmaud Arbery case, like they did the preliminary hearings today, and I'm reading through like the tweets of somebody live tweeting what's actually being said, and I like my eyes were like coming out of my head. I was like, I can't believe they're saying this, and they're saying that the video that they were sharing with national media wasn't the complete video. Like there's much worse things that happened after the shooting and stuff like that happened. So it's like, can you imagine like how incensed the public is going to be once that stuff, you know, eventually comes to light? So, you know, a lot of young folks are protesting right now because they fundamentally don't agree with what's going on as it relates to how the police work and how they manage and all that sort of stuff. And I'll be honest, I have friends who have family members that are police officers too, and they're good folks, you know? So I understand both sides of the situation, but you can't just say that, hey, I understand their situation and I understand their situation, so what can I do? Like, you can't do that. Like this, you have to. I'm not saying if you don't want to pick a side, don't pick a side, but at least let people know that this is an issue. Like this is something that needs to be discussed. Raise awareness to the issue that's happening, right? Like, and I think that's the part that people are afraid to do. And I don't think NBA athletes are afraid to do that unless, you know, they have specific ties. Like I know Michael Porter Jr. got hammered for his tweets like a week ago or whatever. And I think he ended up, I want to say he ended up deleting them. I can't remember, but I get it. It's a dicey situation to walk through, but you can't. Injustice for any community is injustice to every community. There's no like, it doesn't matter what color you are. And so that, my thing is, if you see it happen, you got to say something about it. If it irks you that way, you know, if I just saw somebody right outside my window start getting attacked by somebody, I'm getting off this podcast to go help them. You know what I mean? Like, it's just human nature. We're all human beings. We can't do this. And I can't think of any other. I mean, you already know what my stance is off the record in regards to all of this. So I'm going to keep promoting what I can. I encourage any folks that are watching this or end up listening to the podcast afterwards, like, use your platform to raise awareness in regards to this. It's the best thing you could possibly do. If you can't attend the protest, if you can't fundraise, you know, like offer finances towards it, then at least use your platform to do that. What's the worst going to happen? Like, you'll lose like 10 followers. Who cares? Like, this is just Twitter. Tomorrow Jack could wake up and delete this app and we'll have nothing. So who cares? Like, at least lend your voice to the folks who really need it. That's my stance on it.
No, that's what's most important. And I've had white people, like some of the white writers that I know, reach out and say, what can I do? Like, that seems to be a big thing that white people are saying. Well, what can we do if we really agree with black people and we want to stop police brutality and racism and all those things? And I told one guy, I said, look, man, publicly, you have to call it what it is. When you see it publicly, you need to say something. And then I said, privately, when your friends and family make racist jokes, when somebody does something, you need to have the balls to call your family out, you know, privately. So, and so that's what's important. And I think for me, there's no walking, you know, the line, right? Like, I think since this started happening last few days, I think I lost 17 followers. And I mean, for all I know, they're bots anyway. I mean, Twitter's been blocking a lot of people. They've been canceling accounts left and right anyway. Yeah, so I don't even know.
Yeah, half of the accounts are bots anyway. So who cares? Just like,
right. But like, it's an interesting thing where, you know, this keeps happening. And, you know, I'm not the only one that has said this, but this is the stuff that gets caught on camera. So you imagine what happens off camera, right? That when there isn't a cell phone around to catch it. I know situations that I've been in, and, you know, with the police, I feel like, one, every other part of the legal system requires you to have a college or law degree, right? Like lawyers, judges, like everybody involved in criminal justice has a degree, except for police, a high school diploma, a GED, and all of a sudden you get to walk around with a loaded 9mm pistol, right? Like that is crazy. That basically you don't need any education, you can be a cop. That's the first part. The second thing is, if you were a doctor and there was a malpractice suit, or you were alleged to have let somebody die, you're losing your practice at minimum, and you may still go to jail.
Yeah,
cops can kill people, and nothing happens. It gets suspended with pay.
Yeah, it's a you know, a lot of people, when somebody hears that, they're gonna be like, well, they have a union and they don't have, you know, like they have these, but it's just like, all right, think about the impact of what you're describing. If one person is unjustly murdered, right? If one person unjustly dies, if he has kids, their lives are affected generationally. If his wife is there, or if his spouse is there, that person's life, the parents, their life. You're talking about destroying entire sections. Think of it this way: sections of family trees completely lose like a core element to it. And if the children are young, how do they grow up feeling that way? Like, so I'm sure there's been tons of folks that have done, you know, doctoral thesis and stuff like that in regards to the impact of it. But you're absolutely right. Like, we put our lives in the hands of surgeons and doctors, and those guys have, like, I have tons of friends that are doctors. Like, they have like almost a zero tolerance policy. Like, if you make a mistake, you have to go before a board and literally plead for your job. There is no, you know, there's no easy way out. There's a lot of things you have to answer for. So yeah, I mean, there's got to be some reform. Like, there has to be some conversation, something changed about how this is going, because it's, you know, watching the George Floyd incident was very tough. But what's also equally tough is watching folks go out, peacefully protest, get agitated by the folks on the other side, and then they're getting shot, right? Because they're not showing up with guns or anything like that. And, you know, I'm not going to go on a whole rant about the hypocrisy of what was happening 2 weeks earlier when people were trying to to protest coronavirus and being
haircuts.
being told to stay at home. But like, this is an issue, and it's not just a U.S. issue. You're seeing people around the globe also protest in this man's name. So I think you're right. I think if you do it, privately, or if you do it like within your family and stuff like that, if you immediately let people know, even in a work setting, hey man, this is not like, I'm uncomfortable with what you said or how it's appropriate. I think in like in the Asian community, the South Asian community, like we grow up in a community where shame is a big part of what we are. And it's something that, you may learn if you like in sociology classes or whatever. I don't know what I'm thinking of, but like Eastern cultures, Asian, South Asian, and I can't speak for all of them. Like, shame is a big thing. If I do something embarrassing, it doesn't ruin just me. It ruins my father, my mother, my wife, my kids, my relatives. Like, it gets known in the community. That's a big deal. And I think here in America, the reason why people aren't more careful is because that bond isn't there, right? But now what you're seeing have happen is people who are racist, right? Some athlete comes out or somebody comes out, people are immediately like, okay, where does he work? Okay, let me let his employer know how this person is. Oh, okay, well, who's his father? Oh, his father's a judge. Let me let him know how he actually is. Oh, he plays for this sports team. Is this what this sports team, or is this what the school stands for? All of those sort of things. Like, shame in a different culture is something that's always on the back of my mind. So I can get on a, for the folks that weren't here when we started recording live, you literally asked me right when I came on, like, hey, we may discuss things as it relates to the Black Lives Matter movement. All I told you is there's no difference of how I talk to you off and how I talk to you on. My language may be a little bit different and a little bit more PC, but I have that element always. In my mind, I always think to myself, I can't embarrass myself. I can't embarrass you and your platform. I can't embarrass the people that follow me. I can't embarrass Laker fans everywhere. So I have to be myself, but at the same time, I have to be wary, like, of how I carry myself. And that's, if people don't know what that concept is, when you start telling them that you're uncomfortable about the kind of racist language that they're using, or the racist, intimations that folks make, even if it's like, as a joke, I guarantee you it'll change. People will change the way that they look at you. People will change the way that they approach you. They'll now become active with the folks that are within their community too, as well. Oh, I can't say this. Like, this is not an appropriate term. You have to do it. Like, we think it's like the way that it always gets told to us, not told to us, but the way that it always gets is, well, why is that such a big issue? Like, why are you being a bitch about it? Right? That's usually what it is. That's where they get you. Like, you're less than a man because you're offended by this. It's not about being offended. It's about, like, respect. Like, respect the person that's next to you and that sort of thing. So I think people need to, you're seeing that happen now. I'm seeing all kinds of people. What's the trend on Twitter? The "this you?" ?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
That so many people are. It's crazy.
They're getting people. I know I posted something today because Bank of America said they were going to donate $1 billion to fight racism and all this stuff. But I posted 4 articles that Bank of America, they were fined $432 million for discrimination against Black people. They did it specifically in Maryland and Prince George's County. Like, they've been fined a number of times for discriminating. So it's like, yeah, what are you doing, right?
Yeah.
And one thing that has jumped out at me, like, I have this platform and I'm grateful that I have it. I've worked hard to have it. You've been with me pretty much the whole ride. Also, one of the very first people that came on when I was just getting started. And so you have a platform. I think you have a responsibility to say something, and whether it's say something, whether it's giving money, whether it's giving time, whatever you can do, I think you have a responsibility. But I'm fortunate enough to have a platform. And one of the things that I see athletes doing, I see a number of prominent Black people do this. When they speak out about racism, they always do this thing where they say, we know not all white people are racist, or we know not all cops are bad. Let me be like 100% clear. I don't owe it to anyone to make white people feel better about the situation in this country, or to make cops feel better about their situation. Like, it's not up to me to sit there and say, oh, well, I've got white neighbors or I have white friends, and no. this country wouldn't have a systemic problem of racism if the majority of the damn country wasn't racist. It's not a couple bad apples. I heard someone text me and said, with the police, it's just a few bad eggs. That's a whole lot of a few bad eggs. Like it takes more than a couple dudes at each police department for this to keep happening. It takes more than banks to discriminate lending practices. It takes more than black schools to be underfunded. Like all these things.
Yeah.
Like racism is as American as the apple pie. Like it simply is.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't owe it to anybody that when I decide to tweet or speak out about racism, I don't have to qualify it with, well, my white friends are different.
Yeah.
No, I don't have to, it's not my job to make you feel comfortable, because for 38 years, I have felt uncomfortable in this country.
And I would say the other thing is also, if you have that kind of equity with your friends that are white, right? Like you don't have to explain that to them. They know you're not talking about them. They like I said, it's a self-correcting issue, right? Like if you tell that one person that this is unacceptable, that you can't, like, I'm offended by what you're saying, this is like, you can't behave this way, whatever it is, it's a self-correcting issue, right? Like by you voicing it up, your friend circle, who may not have known at the time that you would get offended by something like that, now they'll know in their minds, I'm not like this guy, but I know that my friend wouldn't accept this, so I'm not going to accept it also myself. And so that's something that needs to happen. Like people need to be able to start saying that sort of stuff, you know, like not be afraid to say that this, and who cares, man? Like I said, if you have Twitter, even if you have 100 followers, you never know who those 100 followers could be. And you never know what sort of improvements you can make. This is about improving the quality of life of Black Americans, of Black folk everywhere. And it, like, I don't know how that's a difficult thing to talk about. I think everybody can agree upon that. And I know, like, in the South Asian community, especially as like the Black Lives Matter stuff, like on Instagram, I'm hardly on it, but on Instagram, I'm seeing so much stuff. South Asian community, like these people have made groups where they're going around and they're like sending messages like, hey, don't use the N-word like when you're like with your friends, because the N-word's been adopted by South Asians, Hispanic folks. They don't use it in the same way. They use it like you would use it in a rap lyric, but even that can be offensive. So like the awareness is raising, and that's what needs to happen. We have to raise awareness when it comes to these sort of things. That's what these kids are doing. They're protesting in the streets because this needs to change. There needs to be awareness. There needs to be change. Nobody is interested in finding out who the bad apples are right now, but we need to have a conversation about this entire structure that needs to be fixed, because it's too many lives that are getting lost. And it's just think about the families that are affected, man. Like I saw that you see the video with Steven Jackson holding Floyd's daughter on his shoulder. It's just, you know, I have a daughter, man. Like, and I have a younger brother. He's 4 years younger than me. And you know, I always tell my daughter, as we've been growing up, or as she's been growing up, I said, look, me and your uncle, we're one and the same. If I ever tell you you can't do this, or if he ever tells you, it's as good as me saying it to you. Imagine how his family's affected now. Like, look at what happens to his family. And so I couldn't imagine something like that, you know, God forbid anything happened to me or my brother, but these are lives. These are human lives we're talking about. It's not money, you know. You didn't get cheated out of a pyramid scheme. This is a life that is lost. So like, we have to raise awareness. It's almost mandatory.
No, it is. And for people that say, you know, protesting or rioting doesn't work, it's always worked. Like, what the hell did you all learn about the American Revolution? Like, that's exactly what America has done. Like, they felt that, you know, the colonies thought they were being oppressed, and they revolted, and they formed another country. In the process of forming said country, they stole land from the Native Americans and enslaved Africans. But the country is built on protest and riots and all of that, right? Yes. And certainly, you know, my Black ancestors, they protested in the 50s and 60s to get rights that I benefit from today. And those young people out there right now protesting, look, that officer, his murder charges went up to second-degree murder. The other 3 officers that just stood around are now being listed as accomplices. Like, that does not happen without the pressure from social media, without these young people out in the streets being willing to put their lives on the line, being shot with rubber bullets, which That shit hurts people. Like
Yeah.
it's not a fun experience. They're putting their lives on the line, and lo and behold, it worked. And so you can't tell people don't go out there and do these things, because this is for a lot of us, this is literally all we have. Because when Colin Kaepernick kneeled down, you said that was too much, right? Like that was bad.
It is. I can't. Something is going on in the world. I'm telling you, man, something is going on in the world. All this bad shit that's happening, like just in the world, the pandemic, a lot of famous folks, that were like influential have been passing away this year or late last year. And, how we're not even that far removed from Kaepernick's situation, like in terms of the conversation. And I'm telling you, the Earth's karma, or whatever the cosmic karma, is catching up very fast. And it is crazy. Yesterday, I like sat there probably for 5 minutes, and I stared at my phone after I saw that interview with that Breeze did with Yahoo, and I was just like, this is we live in two Americas, or there's a parallel universe. I don't know how at this point people are so confused or think that kneeling has anything to do with disrespecting the flag. Has nothing to do with it, like at all. At this point, like it's actually, in my opinion, it's starting to go in the direction where if you start using the flag as the excuse to like not respect the folks that are kneeling, that's probably code for something else, and that has nothing to do with the flag at all. And so, I'm glad he apologized, but I'm sure that some of those words ring hollow because that wasn't what he originally meant. I understand the NFL is a business. I understand for those wide receivers that play on that team and those skill position players, like they have paychecks on the line, and how they decide to do stuff like this and how they decide to approach it. People aren't going to like it, but it does affect their livelihoods. It does affect their families too as well. But hey, there was a New Orleans protest yesterday where they were saying F Drew Brees. So, and he's a folk hero there, and he's there, they love him there. So if they could turn around after that and say that, because they know what matters more to them, football or their lives, like I think other folks who are either right in it or far removed from it can also help contribute to the conversation if we feel that way. And I just want to say one thing. A lot of what has happened with these protests has devolved into a looters versus protesters situation. Mm-hmm. And because of that, on social media, there's a lot of misinformation that's being spread for obvious reasons, because people want to stoke fear. People want to stoke violence. People want to create a red versus blue situation or black versus white situation. Some people want to do that. You cannot tell people how to feel. You cannot tell people who are protesting, who are angry, who are screaming and yelling. You can't tell them how to feel, because you don't know how this affects them. And so I understand. And that's probably where I've had like the most back and forth with folks on Twitter, my personal Twitter. Protesting is fine, but you can't loot buildings and stuff like that. I understand what you're saying, but you still can't tell somebody how to feel. And I'll make it as simple as this. If somebody kills my brother, I promise you, I'm not peacefully protesting anything. Like, that is me. That is how I grew up. That is how I live. Those are my principles. But, and it's different for every single person. So stop telling people don't loot, peacefully protest, because what ends up happening is you end up diluting the entire conversation. We forget that this conversation is about police brutality, and now all you're focused on is damage to businesses or damage. Those companies all have, Target has, I'm sure, an excellent insurance plan. You know what I mean? Like Walgreens and CVS, they all have excellent insurance plans. Should you not destroy like local businesses, like, Black-owned businesses or minority businesses? If you can be strategic in your feelings, maybe. Like that's for you to figure out. But at the same time, like, there's a difference between losing a life and losing property. And people shouldn't equate those two things together. And you can't tell people how to feel. Like it's the First Amendment. They get to do what they want to do, how they want to. The Constitution affords them that ability. The same way the folks are peacefully protesting, and the same way the folks on the other side that are showing up with their guns and standing on the side as those people are peacefully protesting, they're both allowed to do that. So you have to let people feel how they want to feel. And that's the part that's kind of disappointing. I feel as though the conversation about police brutality is getting sort of diluted by this whole protester versus rioter thing. Like, people are going to riot, man. Like, they're tired of just being nice about it. So what else can they do?
Look, man, let me be really clear. I saw a lot of those protests about the pandemic and the coronavirus, like at Huntington Beach. Those protesters didn't look like me. And they were protesting over not being able to get a haircut, not being able to go to the gym. There were people like, there were white armed militias going into Capitol buildings, like fully armed, right? Like, because they couldn't go to their local gym. No one said anything about that. Police didn't jump in and de-arm them, didn't arrest them. But life gets lost on the black side, and black people get upset. And then the oppressor wants to tell us, well, this is how you're supposed to protest. Well, Kaepernick was really peaceful, and you didn't like that. Martin Luther King is one of the more peaceful leaders that we've ever seen in American history. He was still assassinated, right? Like, the truth is, it does not matter how we protest or riot. You don't want us to. That's the point. And so if you have a platform, I think it's smart to use it. If you are afraid that you're going to lose followers or people won't like you, screw them. Like, screw them. So
the only thing that works in life is you being authentic to yourself. You know, one of the things that you and I have discussed since, you know, we first started, you know, chatting and doing this together is one thing that I've learned on at least Twitter. And, you know, I don't know if it's the same on the other platforms, but on Twitter, at least, it's the folks that remain authentic to who they are the ones that, you know, people gravitate to. And, you know, obviously it's based on whether they agree with your principles or not. But at the same time, that authenticity, even if it's something you don't agree about, it's still respected for the most part. And if anything, people know what you're about. And so, you know, I think that this is going to be something that's an ongoing conversation. And I don't think it's going to be something that's going to be handled by only peaceful matters. I think there's going to be a political aspect to it. There's going to be a physical, maybe violent aspect to it, because that's how some folks feel. But I also don't think this is going to be, you know, now with sports coming back, the NBA coming back, a lot of people are like, well, now there's something to be distracted by, right? Because there's nothing to be distracted by right now. There's no sports. You can't go out to get a haircut. You can't do anything. You can't go to the beach. You can't do anything. You got to watch it on TV or on your phone. And I don't think even after the NBA comes back, this is going to go away. I think it's going to get much more loud, personally, because I think a guy like LeBron James is going to say something about it. And I mean, you saw with that Laura Ingraham show on Fox Sports or whatever, like she pulled a what's it called, like a video footage from like a while back. That LeBron Durant interview was done like a while back, and then he compared it to Drew Brees. Like, so obviously it's hypocritical or whatever, but I can't imagine, like, and I know a lot of people say, well, why do we? I see this sentiment a lot too. Like, why do we care? Why do we expect celebrities to say anything? We're the ones who give them their power. Like, the regular common person is the person who's spending money to go watch these seats, spending, like, you know what I mean? Like, you're streaming that artist's music, and like, you can't turn around and say, Twitter's favorite rapper is Future, right? Like, you can't turn around and say that Future makes music for me that's like this, and it makes me feel this way, and I feel like it speaks to me, and that. But then all of a sudden, when Future like decides not to say anything at all, you turn around and say, well, why does he have to say anything? It's not his responsibility to say anything. Well, then why do you give him so much? Like, why should we listen to you? Why should we listen to him? Then you shouldn't have any issue debating those sort of things. If you give any semblance, and this comes from my experience with Kobe, if there's any part of you that ties your personality, your emotions, something to a basketball player or a football player or a celebrity, whether it's because of what he does in the community or what he does on the field or the court, that's still a part of you that you're like investing in him. So, like, you know, like, I get it if you don't want them to be criticized for saying something or not saying something, but at the same time, like, it's not unreasonable to expect that, right? We're expecting the president to bring normalcy to this situation, and he's not doing that. You understand? Like, this is somebody who's being voted into this situation, and he's not doing anything. He's just like, nah, I'm just gonna chill. And if anything, he's doing the opposite. He's inflaming the situation. He's making it more like he's escalating like feelings around it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, all right, so your celebrity can't say something. Like we know your celebrity is more popular than this guy,
right?
And then and we all have different standards when it comes to different things. But like, it's just don't tell the protesters how they need to feel. Don't tell other people that like, why do you care if a celebrity stands up? That's how they feel. That's just how it is. And like I said, if this is a situation, if this is a feeling that you have internally, even if it wasn't just for the Black community, if it was for another community, if you feel so, say how you feel, hash it out.
Yep.
Like that. This is what America is about. Like this is, you have freedom of thought, you have freedom of speech. Say what you want to say, and then if somebody on the other side doesn't agree with you, they'll say what they have to say. That's why everybody keeps getting these past 2 weeks.
Yep.
So this is as as American as apple pie, as you like to say. So
it is.
Arguing over stuff like this, debate, we love it. So it's just a matter of hashing it out. I don't know when the resolution's gonna come, man. But I know in LA they just they stopped enforcing the curfew. And I'm glad that they stopped doing that because I've been trying to keep up with the news. Out here in Atlanta, like I know that they've been doing like protesting like on the daily and stuff like that. So I think as long as cops aren't shooting people, tensions won't rise. And I think people will be less inclined to do violence and destroy buildings and stuff like that when it comes to all that sort of stuff. As long as they're allowed to do what they want to say, do what they want to do. So, I don't know. It's still got 2 months before the league starts. So there's no distractions for the next 2 months. I mean, we're not getting any footage or anything like that. So I'm keeping my eyes glued on this until then.
Yeah, and the truth is, there's still a pandemic going on, and the way that it looks,
still have a pandemic. Oh
yeah, God. There's not going to be a vaccine, and even if one does come, it's still going to need to be tested and have all that stuff, right? So the pandemic is not close to being over. I know that municipalities are starting to reopen, but we're not close to being out of that pandemic yet. And we don't know if it's going to come back around like the flu always does. We have no idea what's going to happen with this thing. So there's that undercurrent. You've got the highest unemployment rate that you've had since the Great Depression going on. You've got racial tensions that's always happened in this damn country.
It's election year. It's an
election year. There's that going on. There's still every other week. There's footage of a black dude being killed by cops. This does not get better anytime soon. And so, it would behoove you, whoever's watching or ultimately listens to this, to take a look in the mirror and make sure that you're not a part of the problem, but you're a part of the solution. That's what I would say on that front. And so at least we do have basketball coming back, and I'm grateful for that. I thank God for that. I hope that all these players and the team personnel, anyone that has to be quarantined, I hope they're all safe. Nobody gets sick. And, we'll finally get to talk about the Lakers winning that 17th championship this year and tying the Boston Celtics and going from there. So Vinay, as always, man, thank you for coming on.
Of course, brother. Of course. I'm always happy to be here. And, as always, I appreciate, I know you launched the website. You've got an excellent cast of writers and graphic guys that are on there. As always, there are many things in life that have gray areas, and sports is one of them. It's never just this guy's terrible and this guy's great. There's always some gray areas. And one of the things that I always do appreciate is that you're always trying to keep that gray area when it comes to sports. And you keep some normalcy, you keep the clickbait out, and you try to like approach it like a with some common sense and stuff like that. So I'm really happy that you finally got around to launching your site amidst all the stuff that's happening. And I'm reading all the stuff that the guys are putting out and stuff like that. I enjoy it a lot. And just keep it going, man. Like all we can do as it relates to all these topics, the pandemic, sports, police brutality, all we can do is address it, do our best to move that conversation forward in a positive manner, in a manner that is productive, that helps the folks that need help. And I know we started off talking about the Lakers, and we then talked a lot about what's going on in the U.S. But I hope the folks that listen, I hope they're all doing okay. I know there's a lot of very, very passionate Laker fans that are probably at the protests as well, and that very much love the city of Los Angeles too, and the folks that live there. So it doesn't even matter if you're Laker fans. If you're a LA resident, for me personally, or anywhere else, I hope everybody's being safe. I hope everybody is continuing to wash their hands since we're dealing with the unknown pandemic enemy. And if anything else, one thing that I've been doing, because I get stressed out too, like reading Twitter and seeing all this stuff, is just take like 5 minutes at the end of your day just to like meditate or just do some deep breathing and close your eyes. I know it's not going to what's it called? Get rid of the problems tomorrow, but at least it can help calm you down. I've been doing that. It's been helpful to me. I try to do meditation as much as I can. But having a sound mind and sound emotions was always good. So, hey man, it's great chatting with you as always. I'm sure we'll speak soon, and I hope you're good. I hope you're doing good. I hope the family's doing good, and I hope everybody that's listening, I hope you guys are all doing good as well.
Well said, everybody. Thanks for tuning in either to the live stream or listening to the podcast, and we'll catch up with you guys next time. So we're out.